Not a week goes by at the 50th Annual World Series of Poker without some form of controversy and drama. The latest issue to arise, which has players on both sides of the fence making a case, has to do with the $25 and the $2,500 fantasy draft. Now, Daniel Negreanu is the founder of the 25K fantasy draft. ODB is running the $2,500 fantasy draft. And not only is there a lot of money which rides on the draft itself, but there are a lot of side bets and prop bets, which we even spoke to Alan Kesella about last week, which involved the numbers and the players in the fantasy draft. Now, what's the controversy, you might ask? We spoke in our most recent news update about how the World Series of Poker took an unprecedented action this year in adding a $50,000 high roller towards the end of the WSOP. The question is, should this high roller be added or not? Now, I think they've done a very fair thing in putting a 3-person arbitration crew to determine whether or not this will become a part of the fantasy draft or not. I decided to talk to players, founders, and even arbitrators about where they stand on this issue. First off, let's talk to Daniel Negreanu.
So here's the thing people don't know is that I actually wrote the rules because it was my thing years ago. Unfortunately, those rules are not published anywhere, so we can't use them because I can't find them. But what is listed on the website says points will be awarded only in open events. This is an open event. It doesn't say points will only be awarded in open events that were published the day the schedule was released. Things happen, changes happen. There was a structure change to the 50K that's going to benefit no limit hold'em players now because it's a bigger blind ante. And such is life. I don't think anyone had any inherent advantage. It's just, chalk it up to randomness. It's a bracelet event. I'd like it to count. I don't care all that much. It doesn't benefit me. But, if I were to rule, I could just rule as the commissioner. But I thought, let's just put it to arbitrators, let them decide so that no one thinks there's any vested interest,
And now to talk to the man heading the smaller draft, David Baker, ODB.
I'm more in the middle than most people as far as the draft goes. I don't think it should be added, but I do think there are valid opinions on both sides. I think ultimately it comes down to the spirit of the competition, and the spirit of the competition is the fact that we all had a preset schedule knowing what we were drafting for. And this isn't just a small add. I mean, we're adding an event that's going to be a lot of points, and it's going to favor 10 people that were drafted. So in that regard, I really think that it should not be in. I do understand some of the points on the other side. When it comes down to it, there is an argument on both sides, but I think when there's an argument on both sides, you just have to weigh which one makes the most sense. And what makes the most sense to me is that it shouldn't count because it fundamentally changes the values of certain players.
Fair points on both sides. Now let's talk to some other players to get their thoughts.
It's very complicated, but at the end of the day, it boils down to a very simple thing. This, in my opinion, or at least for as long as I've been a part of the World Series of Poker, has never happened before. They have never added an event in the middle of the summer, which is a very strange thing. So because of that, there is no rule in place that states what is going to happen when an event gets added midway through the summer. The rules now state any open event, or I think it doesn't say any, but it says open events count for 25K fantasy points. So under that rule, you have to include this event. I hate it. My team is not built for this. I don't have many players that will play the 50K. I might have one. So from my perspective, I think it's a shitty thing for the draft. I think it hurts more teams than it benefits because there's not a lot of no-limit crushers that are getting drafted that play these kinds of events. The people that drafted their team, they'll know immediately whether this helps them or not. But at the end of the day, and I'm very against this being added because it would have changed my outlook on how I draft players. At the end of the day, we have to follow rules. It's the same thing with playing a poker tournament. You have to follow the rules. There's no rule against this. There's no rule against this event being included. It never says anywhere that it's the events that are on the schedule at the date of the draft. It doesn't say that anywhere. So there's no other way to do it. We have to include this event. I hate it. I'm not a fan. It hurts my team. But at the end of the day, there needs to be a rule in place next year that clearly states the only events that count for the standings are the events that are on the schedule by the time the draft starts.
I think it was obviously just an oversight that in the rules, the bylaws of the 25K draft, we should have included parenthetically, events that are already on the schedule or, whatever. Now, to say, it doesn't even actually say in the rules all open events. It just says open events count, not the seniors event or the ladies event. Also, I think the WSOP had decided ahead of time they were definitely going to be adding an event, and I don't know whether or not some of those people involved in the draft knew it. In the end, I don't really know how much of a different impact that has on drafting. I mean, we always take into consideration the weight of the no-limit hold'em players versus the mixed game players, and we try to, every team tries to throw one or two no-limit people in there. But I still think, personally, it doesn't make any sense to count it at this point. It was clearly, I think, not part of what people were considering. To me, that seems pretty easy.
So I don't think it should be added because it wasn't on the schedule to start. And I know that it's likely not going to change things, but the issue is that it can alter the outcome at the end. And to me, personally, if you don't include this event in the scoring, it doesn't affect anyone. Everyone's the same. But, if it does get included, some people get a boost, some people are at a disadvantage. So I would just not add it in at all and just let it be, and that's it.
Daniel is making the case that it should count, and Matt Glantz and Jake Schwartz are making the case that it should not count, which is kind of ironic considering that that's one thing I respect about Glantz a lot is his team probably is probably helped by accounting, and he's fighting against it because he thinks it makes the most sense. So that to me says a lot. My team personally, I don't think it really affects either way. I've got Bonomo, who's probably the favorite, who'd probably be the favorite going in, and I have Shannon Short, who might play, and Zeno, who might play. But I'm better than some teams, and I'm worse than others. So it doesn't really matter to me as far as that goes. I do have a personal side thing, is that I have a bracelet bet with Alex Foxen, and we negotiated terms before the World Series, and now this is added, and he's a big favorite in that. So we're kind of at odds whether it should count. So I have dual interest in this event as far as accounting or not.
And finally, the man who is one of three to hold the weight of this decision ultimately on his shoulders, Phil Galfond.
I don't feel too much pressure because the fact that smart people are on both sides of it, I don't think anybody's really going to judge either decision. But I mean, it's a sign of respect to get chosen as an arbitrator, so it's cool, and happy to do it. Because they kind of told us to decide how we wanted to, but we decided we would each decide on our own without conversing with each other, and then it would just be the majority rules.
We, of course, will keep you guys updated as this unfolds, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. Leave your thoughts in the description. Should the 50K high roller become a part of the draft or not? Thank you guys so much for watching. You're on PokerNews.com.